Good morning, everyone. I'm Joseph Gildenhorn, Chairman of the Board of Trustees of the Woodrow Wilson International Center for Scholars. And it's my real pleasure to welcome you to today's Directors Forum with His Excellency Romano Prodi, former Prime Minister of Italy and former President of the European Commission. The Woodrow Wilson Center was established by an act of Congress in 1968 and is our nation's official living memorial to President Woodrow Wilson. It was founded to honor and build upon his legacy as a man who bridged the divide between scholarship and public policy. We at the Center bring together the thinkers and the doers, and these include policymakers, scholars, and business leaders, in the hope and the belief that a frank, open, and informed dialogue will lead to better understanding, cooperation, and positive public policy. Today, we are honored to have a speaker whose extraordinary background reflects accomplishments in all three worlds: policy, scholarship, and business. Former Prime Minister Romano Prodi has held every high office in his country and has played a major role in leading Italy into an active and prominent position in the European and global community. He has been a long and steadfast proponent of European integration. Our distinguished guest has had a most interesting and successful career, serving as Prime Minister of Italy on two occasions, from 1968 to 1998, and from 2006 to 2008. And in between his terms as Prime Minister, he served as President of the European Commission from 1999 to 2004. Professor Prodi has also had a distinguished academic career. He received his law degree from Catholic University of the Sacred Heart in Milan and went on to study at the London School of Economics. He taught for many years at the University of Bologna and was a visiting professor at Harvard University. Today, he is also a professor at large at the Watson Institute for International Studies at Brown University. Professor Prodi is also the president of the Foundation for Worldwide Cooperation and chairman of the United Nations African Union Panel for Peacekeeping in Africa. The Woodrow Wilson Center, through its European Studies program, is committed to advancing dialogue and scholarship on European policy matters. It has a particularly strong record on issues dealing with the transatlantic relations, the Western Balkans, and Southeastern Europe. It should be noted that Italian scholars have played an active role at the Center over the years. And in this regard, the Center's history and public policy program has a long-standing tie with the Machiavelli Center for Cold War Studies in Florence, as well as with several other Italian universities. Over the past few years, the Center has co-sponsored a number of conferences in Italy and is currently working with Italian partners on a new initiative on the history of nuclear proliferation. Professor Prodi, we're honored to have you here with us today as we continue our commitment to advancing dialogue and scholarship on European policy issues. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming His Excellency Romano Prodi.
First of all, good morning. I'm really happy to be here for this conference and conversation, because I think the best part of these occasions are given by the exchange of views that we shall have after my introductory speech. The subject today is the future of Europe and transatlantic relations. Let's say the long-lasting relation between US, Europe, and the forecast about the future of the Union. Difficult today, huh? Because today is the day in which, in theory, the new responsible for, let's say, the chairmanship, the presidency of the Council, and the role of the so-called foreign ministry of European Union will be decided in Brussels. You know, maybe been already decided. I don't know. It's because the Brussels time is different from the Washington time. But we shall try to analyze the past briefly, to make some reflection on the present and some guess about the future. First of all, it's clear that U.S. support has been absolutely vital and important, not only for the European reconstruction, it's clear, but also for the European Union, helping the European integration. Since the beginning, the Franco-German talks for putting together steel and coal were backed by the American government, who was always in favor of Franco-German reconciliation. And in the post-war, Europe has always been a partner of US, sometimes junior partner, but a partner. And also when you analyze the documents, the history, also the economic side of it, of the Union, was backed by US. And in theory, not always the interests were the same, you know. So it was really a political choice on the American side. US supported the enlargement, all the enlargement, especially the first one to United Kingdom, and at the same time US opposed the complete European autonomy and even in this case European cooperation in the field of the security matter. Let's say pro-Europe, but NATO for security as a priority. It was a clear, coherent policy. Because of that, also because of that, the integration has been concentrated mainly on economic matters, and NATO, the pillar of security cooperation. During the Cold War, US dominant position on security and political matter was challenged only in two cases, when there was some hint of formal cooperation in foreign policy, and when, during the Vietnam War and the Euro missiles case, a strong part, you know, a substantial part of European public opinion was criticizing US, but they were only two cases, all the period of Cold War, in which there were substantial difference. In the last 20 years, economic integration became even stronger, but stronger also some, let's say, transatlantic disputes, GMO, beef hormones, copyright, and so on. We had some not so important dispute, but quite an increasing number of disputes. And but also a common effort to find a stronger cooperation in many regional conflicts, from the Middle East to the Balkans. There were really strict cooperation between US and Europe. Different case was during the George W. Bush administration, in which there were increasing difference, not only in specific matter, but also in the vision of the world. Unilateralism versus multilateralism and shared sovereignty. The real point of dispute was the Iraqi war. Part of Europe was with the Americans, parts against, but there was a deliberate American policy to divide Europe. You know, that never happened, honestly, in all the post-war period. You remember the debate between old and new Europe. It was just the, you know, I was president of the European Commission, and really, you can't understand how this division was heavy, was difficult for us, was a painful period for Europe. There was no meeting, even dealing different subject in which this division did not come out, you know. And the difference were not only on this point, but also on the vision of the world, you know, the Commission. And I personally backed and supported the Kyoto Protocol. And the American administration was strong against. Clearly, I was aware, I am aware of the technical difficulties of the protocol, of the deep imperfections. But I did think, and I do think, that in these matters in which you have a global consequence, you need to have global solutions, step by step. You need time, you need to be patient, but you need a global solution. And in Kyoto Protocol, in the vision of the Commission, was just the starting of this process, you know. And I think that from this point of view, it was very, very, very useful, you know. But because of this situation, this was another reason why the Obama election was so deeply backed by European public opinion. Almost some sort of global referendum inside Europe in favor of Obama, you know. And after 1 year of Obama president, the European public opinion is appreciating the change of American attitude, but they are also discovering that Obama cannot be the savior. I try to let's say, to make the simple job that any scholar must do in this case. How many times Obama quoted Europe in his speech? Never. Maybe for good reasons, you know, but and then we shall understand why, you know. This is the preoccupation, you know, and the message that I have to deliver today. But let us make one step back 1 minute. What is now Europe? 27 member countries, 496 million people, #1 in world GNP, more than 30% of world GNP, #1 in world export, more than 17% without intra-European trade. Also a great laboratory of politics, you know. The euro, it's something that is unbelievable. 11 countries put together the currency. Now they are already 16, and they will increase. In the last crisis, the euro was the savior of with the euro we could avoid, let's say, depreciation, competitive depreciation that would have put the world in a tragedy. And I repeat, it's never been done in world history. The two pillars of the modern states, Westphalian modern states, are the currency and the army. And now we have not the European national states, the 16, have not anymore a national currency. And this has been, you know, I do remember when I was president of the European Commission, the bilateral meeting with the Chinese government. There was the normal dossier that you have in the international meeting, but this was done in 5 minutes, and the Chinese president was only asking about the euro. Will you really have a common currency? Will Deutschmark and French franc disappear? Can I take it in my reserves? Then, you know, then when the euro came out, the year after, you remember that the euro went down in the beginning, you know. I was a little shy, embarrassed to meet him again and say, look, you have given me a very bad advice. But I shall go on buying euro for two reasons. Because the euro will go up, and then the year after he was so happy. And second, because I want to live in a multipolar world, not dominated by only one country, and the currency is the instrument of power. And so I do prefer have dollars and euro. And I shall buy in the future so many euros in order to have as many dollars and as many euros. And this has not been materialized for the simple reason, then we shall see in the future of my speech, because euro in the years after disappointed this expectation, you know, because it was clear that this expectation by the euro was linked to a political progress, you know, a more political unit in Italy. But this is absolutely interesting, you know. So when I say that Europe has been the great laboratory of institutional innovation, I am not cheating, you know, because side by side with the euro, we had the enlargement, and the enlargement has been something absolutely new, you know, and was an exercise that has been underestimated, you know, because when the mission that was given to the Commission after the fall of the Berlin Wall was to enlarge the Union to 5 new countries in 10 years. We did 10 new countries in 4 years, and then 2 additional countries in the following 2 years, you know, so it was, why? Because it was so clear that you couldn't leave an empty space in Europe. And these years, in the last 2 years, with the tension between European Union and Russia, I think that this was at last clearly understood, because I was so much criticized, you know, to open the door to immigrants, to blah, 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 to this populistic moment that Europe is crossing now. And only after this period of George and so on, everybody understood that if you shouldn't have Poland in the Union, you imagine the difficult situation of Europe in the last year. And so this is the picture of today Europe, but clearly, as I told you before, I do understand that even if there is no hint to the old and new Europe, the European Union is not at the center of American policy anymore. As an academic, I follow it, you know, I worked years ago in the European Center, Harvard Center for European Studies, and other places like that. You had an increasing interest in American academics about Europe, and now we are clearly a decreasing interest on that, you know. This is my interpretation. In the period of transformation of all the international representation from G8 to the G20, reinforcing of IMF, but the BRIC that wants to have a stronger participation to that. China that does not anymore talk about dollars and euro, but of a new currency with many currencies in it, and the renminbi in it too. But it's quite interesting. In very few years, the old idea, I do prefer to have 2 currencies as a reference, has been transformed. We want a currency represented the most important currency of the world. It is an enormous change in 5 years. This one, no, in 7 years. In 7 years. And, you know, clearly I do understand that Obama does not know to whom to deal for the European problems, you know, the old problem. China is the same situation. And The European members still have different views and policy in many areas, such as security, energy, and economics. And also, it was my experience in the last year in the African policy. Let's say the relics of the colonial period are so strong, you know, and you have France that has a preferential relation with the French-speaking African countries, UK the same. And when I was in the Commission, the only decision that could be taken was to leave chef de file, let's say, the responsibility for, let's say, the policy with the French-speaking country to France. Côte d'Ivoire, it was France, and we follow it, you know. And Zimbabwe, UK, you know. But this makes it difficult to have a really continental type African policy that is needed now to have an efficient policy, you know. And I can multiply this type of example with a relation with Russia and energy and all that. This is the picture. Last question to answer, last set of questions. Will the Lisbon Treaty change that? The Lisbon Treaty does not represent a revolution in the direction of European integration. It is a good progress, but it provides a set of amendments to the present structure, not a new political beginning. The history of it is very simple. We proposed to the Commission a strong, very innovative constitution. This was not approved by the, let's say, the Commission delegated to study it. A compromise was approved. The compromise was blocked by the French and the Dutch referendum. We arrived to a compromise of a compromise that is called the Lisbon Treaty. The Lisbon Treaty was blocked by the Irish referendum. Then you had the strange fact to have a second referendum in Ireland, and especially due to the financial crisis, the vote completely changed, but also because these referendums are strange referendums. If you say yes, okay. If you say no, nothing happens. No, should be a different referendum in which if you say yes, is approved. If you say no, you get out of the union. In this case, you will see everybody voting yes, you know, or because it's a zero-loss decision. And so, and second, in all this referendum, the internal policy problems are absolutely dominating, you know. The French referendum was not pro-Europe or anti-Europe, but was pro-Chirac or anti-Chirac, you know. So you see how the national picture and the European picture, they have, you know, it's so complicated to live together. If you take also the last case, the reaction against the financial crisis, you got an immediate reaction on American side, 800 billion. I don't judge if it's good or bad, but a fantastic immediate reaction. The Chinese even quicker, you know, $585 billion. That is still more in terms of percentage than the US decision. In Europe, you had the British government just a lot of money to save banks and to put liquidity in the system. The French to defend, especially the industrial companies. The Germans and the Italians till now to do nothing. And so it's clearly is a consequence of a different economic situation. It's clearly understandable. But how long can you go with a common currency policy and a different economic policy? This is the great question that you have in front of us. You can go on, but you arrive till a moment in which there will be a contradiction, you know. And we have no instrument, you know. I proposed to have the Eurobonds to intervene for some common public works or common necessity, but the Germans didn't want for the same eternal reason. There will be European Eurobonds and Germany will pay for them, you know. So it's a difficult. So in this situation, the US and the European Union members are running a very high risk from being divided. They have the risk to be marginalized, especially in the relation with the United States. The risk of today Europe is not democratic risk, is not an economic risk, because the European economy globally taken is much more strong than anybody thinks. Also, the results in terms of the enlargement has been remarkable. You know, all the new poor countries who came into the Union have growth much more than the average. This means that there is also a good, positive social consequence of this union. So the results are good, but Europe is becoming irrelevant in the multipolar world, because multipolarity is not a value in itself. We may have an anarchic multipolarism, a conflictual multipolarism, multipolarism that is both anarchic and conflictual, you know, is a value if accompanied by a strategy and agreement, you know. And from the European point of view, the multipolarity has not yet been thought and organizing. And so, especially in front of the conflicting global dynamics, you know, which the relation between the BRICS, think to the different attitude vis-à-vis Russia. Germany and Italy, globally pro-Russian, to be more simple. UK and France more distant, and so on. The African policy, I already told on the different attitudes. The strategy vis-à-vis Asia, and simple problem like the Dalai Lama, you know, they come out anytime. And so we need an organized multipolarity in order to have international security in Middle East, Africa, and Russia. And this cannot be solved only by military force. And we understand that in the new system, the military dimension alone is not sufficient to solve the problem. Think about Iraq, Iran, Lebanon, Afghanistan, Kosovo. We need an organized multipolarity concerning the international economic order, concerning environment, and clearly, in this time, everybody talks of loss of power on the US side, but the US remain and will be, for the foreseeable future, the most powerful country in the world. You know, 50% of world military expenditure are on the American budget. But this is not effective. It's not enough, you know. And U.S. have the necessity to rethink deeply to the effectiveness and credibility of American power. And in spite of the weakness, in spite of the criticizing that they have done honestly done about Europe, I think that the European Union is, let's say, must be a first option partner in the sense that we have same value, and this is not rhetoric. We have almost the same rules. We have this long-lasting cooperation that I described before. Clearly, during the Cold War, the transatlantic link was a necessity. Now is an option. I do understand, but I think that it is a really convenient option. Difference will be sometimes substantial, but the vision of the world and the global challenge, the hierarchy of the global challenge are really similar. And I think that in any case, whichever will be the general policy of the United States is interest of US to be strongly linked with Europe. And this is clearly my option, is interest of United States to help push and, let's say, press for more integrated Europe. Clearly, this is not easy because UK policy is not going in this direction. But I think that if you looking from Washington, you know, I think that it is absolutely vital to have a strong Europe as an ally with the same type of brain, with the same type of value, you know. It's and there are also deep immediate interests. For example, to put in practical terms, I think that there is a common interest to decrease the tensions with Russia, and a Russian interest to decrease these tensions. And Russia and the US have a common interest in decreasing the military expenses and military build-up in an area in which the tensions are not anymore as in the past and can be easily managed. And therefore, there is no need to expand NATO beyond the existing borders. You know, it's is a common interest of Europe, Russia, and US to have a long-lasting common energy policy. And I think there is also and why not have a long-range interest for a deal aimed to create a stable partnership among European Union, Russia, and the United States. Clearly, we have also still problems. You know, if you think to the Singapore meeting on climate, you know, it was really disappointing for many European countries. Even there was no illusion to a quick decision for that. But I think that US and Europe have a great responsibility for greenhouse emissions. And they could have a convenient horizon to push for new energies and give impulse to the economy even through these new sectors. Last point, in international economic governance, we have a common interest to work together. It is not an easy job, because I was really shocked, because till March and April we had some sort of moral revolt, you know, if we don't change the system, you know, we shall go in disarray. And from April to now, step by step, we are arriving to the decision that business as usual is the best decision in the world for the world governance, And this is, in my opinion, this is very risky, because it's, and in this case, we have a necessity of a strong cooperation between United States and Europe. But going back in the end of that, clearly to arrive to this cooperation, to make for US possible to push and help and convenient, not only possible, convenient, to push and help European Union, we from the European side must be convinced that national sovereignty cannot remain unlimited in today's world in the dimension of the European countries. I repeat, I was just repeating like a mantra to my students when I was talking about Europe. I still do that. I shall always do that, I am an Italian. And in the Renaissance period, the Italian states were dominating over the fields, military fields, arts, finance, accounting, technical, the art of the war. And there was the first globalization, the discovery of America. We didn't stick together and Italy disappeared from the world map with the new dimension of US, China, Brazil, India, Europe, Germany, France. They are in the same situation, even UK, Germany, France, and Italy. If they don't stick together with this second and much wider globalization, they have no dimension to have a role in the new world. It's not easy to convince countries with this deep history to do that, but but to arrive to that, we must take some very brave decision. First of all, get out of unanimity. The most important decisions in Europe are taken by unanimity, and unanimity among 27 countries is impossible. It was impossible when I was the president of the European Union at 15. It was impossible to have unanimity in the big issues, and in unanimity you cannot even clean this room if you need unanimity. Second, look, and we've demonstrated that we can also take decision not a unanimity. The euro, only, I told you before, 11 countries, and then now 16 countries are members of the euro. So the new Europe must go on with non-total, with the decision, with not all the countries participating to them, But the European rule is to leave the door open. Otherwise, it will be anti-European decision. So in the euro, any European country can get in, simply if they want and they are fitted, they are respond to some rules, Second, we need a budget for declared ambition. Nobody knows, but the European Union budget is 1% of European GDP, nothing. And all the Murdoch papers, they say, look, this enormous bureaucracy, the cost, and all together, regional policy, bureaucracy, agricultural policy, and so all together is, in my last budget, was 0.96% of European GDP. A federal budget generally is 1/3 of GDP, 30, 35%. So, look, this is the second decision. Third one, very blunt, the exit clause. If you don't like it, please get out. In Europe, we must have a door to get in and a door to get out. That's. And another condition is this will oblige me to the immediate suicide, but we must unify our presence in international bodies. In WTO, in which we are united, we count, we have power, but in IMF, in Security Council, you know, it's incredible, you know. And even if I am an European, I think, wise enough to understand that to have 8 European countries in the G20, is a nonsense, because it's not true. This is not the word that we wanted with the G20. You know, the G20 was done, the passage from the G8 to the G20 were done to a larger representation. If in 20 that you have around the table you have 8 Europeans, this is not correct. For another reason, the Europeans, they are never in agreement, you know. And so the result is, will be the G2. Huh? But not because of a devilish will, but because of necessity. You must take the decision, you know. And so these are the conditions in which Europe can be an actor, not a spectator, because we have dimension, we have GNP, production capacity, research and development, everything to be an actor. But being divided, we are a spectator. And so we are in the middle of a crossroad. We must be very proud for what we have done in the past, because, you know, the fantastic innovation in the political governance, in the government, has been only Europe. You know, that's clear. In the last century, Europe was the innovator. We have innovated world politics, governance. We have created wealth, peace, but we are now in a standstill, uncertain between the past and the future, and too often looking with nostalgia to the past. You know, on the U.S. side, U.S. cannot afford the new multipolar strategy without the only partner sharing, since generation, the same values and the same broad strategy. This is my opinion. Clearly, to renovate our partnership, European countries should overcome the pride dwarf syndrome. This is the sickness of Europe, to be a pride dwarf. And the US should stop facing global problems, dealing European countries one by one. They must understand that their interest is Europe, not only European country. So this is the end of my observation, you know, and I end with the last sentence. You know, a friend of mine, we were discussing in Madrid about European policy last week, and a participant to the meeting posed the blunt question: is European a laboratory or a museum? Let's think it over, because we have been the most fantastic laboratory in the world politics, and we wish to become a museum, you know, a museum full of masterpieces, you know, the most fantastic museum that you can imagine. But a museum is still a museum. And I have been, I think, honest, sincere, to give you the condition, I think, that will be necessary, that we come back to be the best laboratory in the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Prodi. Professor has agreed to take some questions from the audience. Gentleman there.
My name is Filippo Chiesa. I'm a recent graduate of Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies. Thank you for coming for your presentation. I was wondering, in your opinion, could we as Europeans also strengthen transatlantic partnership by coordinating better our European security and defense policy? Is that another measure that we could take? And maybe your opinion on the differences among European countries on that matter. Thank you.
Second question.
The young lady.
Thank you for the young. Marisa Lino from Northrop Grumman, and it's a pleasure to see you in Washington again. I'm going to ask you a provocative question, something you have not mentioned, which is Turkey. You have Turkey...
Because I knew that you were asking it.
Thank you. You have Turkey fully integrated into NATO, and obviously different opinion with respect to the US government and the European nations as to whether Turkey should be in the European Union. And a corollary to this is Cyprus. Cyprus will take the presidency in 2012. Is there any hope of resolving the Cyprus issue before it takes the presidency?
The gentleman back here.
Third one.
Third question.
My name is Gennady Druzenko. I'm Woodrow Wilson Scholar from Ukraine, and I want to address you another little bit drastic questions. You stated that the last enlargement of the European Union was a great success, and that the European Union should to keep its doors open for the neighbors, for the European neighbors. At the same time, once you mentioned that the Ukraine has as much reason to be in the European Union as New Zealand. Have you changed your mind since? Thank you.
You know, I didn't tell that. I told it was a serious answer that the Ukrainian people have deliberately misshaped. I told that if the situation, if the division in Ukraine is so deep and so strong, Ukraine will have the same probability than New Zealand. It was quite different, my option, and I am still there. Because when I touch Ukraine, to which I am very, very much linked, I found it impossible to touch because Ukraine is so divided, with a political life so difficult and tense, that nobody dares to touch the Ukrainian problem to come into the European Union, except Poland, because it's like putting fire, but it's not. In this case, it's not a European problem; it's an Ukrainian problem. As you know, we are in front of election, and I don't think there is any hope of having a democratic choice, clear democratic choice inside the Ukraine, And so how can you have an enlargement in the so difficult political situation? Completely different from the Turkish case, in which there was an European engagement since a long time. The problem now is a European problem, it's not a Turkish problem. The Turkish case is quite interesting. In this difficult situation, you open the door immediately to the former Yugoslavian countries. They are clearly, and there is a solution for the most horrible European political problem we had in the past. So Croatia, Macedonia, then Serbia, Albania, because no problem from the economic point of view. Everybody talks about digestive capacity. Altogether, they are 1% of European GDP. Even if you inject 5% or 1% is nothing, So so this is, and then you have all these troops. I don't want that the soldiers, the sons of the soldiers that now bring at school the children in the Balkans, will bring to school the children of the children, and the next generation. Because, and we have a political solution. So let us go on immediately for that. Then create what I I have called the Ring of Friends, that all the countries from Belarusia to Ukraine, and even if not directly in the border, like Georgia or Armenia, Israel, Syria, till Morocco, Egypt, if they want, and they can share everything but institutions with Europe. So trade, agriculture policy, one by one, in order to create this new idea of the state, to complete the idea of the end of the nationalistic, Westphalian state, And this, I think, this is in the time being, is really the decision must be taken, but nobody is working on that. But I think that step by step will come out again. On security policy, well, the differences are big, It's, and I think that the army and the foreign policy will be the two last chapters of European unification if the progress will start again, because of the difference, the idea of expenditure, the idea of keeping NATO and not changing anything, difference also in the enlarging of NATO. I personally, the last decision I've taken when I was in the government, I voted against the expansion to NATO to Georgia and Ukraine for the simple reason that in this moment it was without a doctrine, it was not useful to have this expansion irritating Russia without an idea of which was the common interest for that. Okay, 3 other questions?
One more question, and that's young lady.
Only one? Okay.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to say that it was really interesting, and thank you for talking to us. My name is Natalia Makieva. I'm from American University, and my questions concerns the energy politics. I wanted to ask you whether you think that such pipelines like the Nord Stream will divide Europe more than the Iraq War, for example.
Sorry, the pipelines?
Like the Nord Stream.
Nord Stream is all the premier pipelines. Look, this brings me back to the famous Ukrainian problem, this is part of the Russian arm twisting on Ukraine. So Putin decided to, encircle Ukraine with the North pipeline going through the sea till Germany, skipping Poland and so on, and one from the south, crossing the sea, the Black Sea, and then coming to Romania, Bulgaria, till Italy. The first one with German counterparts, the second one with Italian counterparts. With another complication, that the European Union had decided another south pipeline, Nabucco, going through Turkey. But I tell you, why don't we work together to link the European pipelines in one network? So it arrives to Germany, but it arrives to Poland, and the south gas coming from Libya to Italy, it can arrive to Poland. And this was impossible. The European countries have not yet arrived to this problem of a common energy policy. So it's So we are in this very complicated situation in which we have all the interests to be united, monopoly against monopsony, and when you have a strong monopsony, then monopoly has many problems. Also because it's not complete monopoly, because we have LNG and gas coming from now. And now the complication has come out. The situation is even more complicated. Because of economic crisis, the consumption of gas went absolutely low, and so for the two pipes from south, there are problems. Is it now convenient? In how many years? Whether will be still convenient to build so many pipelines? Clearly, the most convenient choice is only one: to reinforce and repair the Russian pipeline that are a disaster, to repair the Ukrainian passage that is also need to be repaired, to have a joint venture with the Ukrainians, and this is clearly, but, and this is also part of the answer to my Ukrainian friends, the political situation inside the country, it makes it much more difficult, and so Putin has taken the most assertive decision to invest. I don't know how much the Northern Stream cost, but the Southern Stream, it cost 22 billion euros, I think. It's enormous. You fix up all the Russian pipelines that now lose a very high quantity of gas. But the political situation is such that Russia does not want to give up all the ancient relation with Ukraine. Should be needed a wise compromise, and I think that also because of that there is a deep interest of let's say a wide negotiation between Russia, US, and Europe on all these issues, because I don't see strategic difference, deeply strategic difference. I think that this could be common interest and common sense, but in politics, this is not always the case. Thank you.